Hey there, hope you're doing well. In this video, let's talk a little bit about meetings and the cost of meetings. If you're a large company that has a lot of money, some inefficiencies you can afford to have some of those inefficiencies go unnoticed. I would imagine so. But if you're a small company, if you're a startup, and if you're like us, who's bootstrap funded, then every dollar matters, right? Every single dollar matters. And even if you're not bootstrap funded, if you're slightly bigger, but if you're a startup or you have limited budget, you want to make sure, everyone needs to make sure that they use the dollars more as efficiently and effectively as possible. But I'm just trying to call out for the fact that it becomes all the more important and it becomes a do or die situation the smaller you get, right? In that context, let's say as a dev team, you want to see how many people get into your meetings on an average. Is it one? Is it two people? Of course, you need to have a minimum of two people. But if it is it two, three, four, five, or upwards of five, because sometimes I notice that there are meetings with a large number of people. It could be 10, 15, 20. I'm not talking all hands meetings. I'm just talking regular meetings, right? Design meetings or architecture meetings or requirements discussions with like a large number of people, not just double digits, but well into the double digits. Like I've seen 20, 30 people. And you wonder how many of us in that meeting are actually contributing to that, to whatever it is that's being discussed. And if you took like an hour's worth of meeting time, and let's say just to have some simple numbers, right? Let's say there are 10 people in the meeting, and someone gets paid $25 an hour, someone else gets $50 an hour, someone else gets paid like 75 and then $100 an hour, right? I'm just throwing a bunch of numbers. And let's say the average cost of everybody that's on the call is $50 an hour. Then, 50 times 10 is $500. So it's $500 spent during the course of that hour discussing something, right? And again, the absolute number 500 may mean something to you as a company, or maybe so small that it doesn't matter to you, right? But if you're a larger company and if you have people with a lot of experience have done this for a long time, or expensive folks being in the call, then it's not $50 or $100, right? It's probably much higher than that. So you get the idea. So you're going to be spending $1,000, $2,000, or if it's like 30 people, probably it's like $3 to $4 grand that you're spending during the course of that call. That's sunk cost. That's time that those people could have spent doing something else. Now again, maybe some a percentage of those folks needed to be in that meeting. You had to make some decisions at the end of the call, and you need them there, right? And it begs the question: Could you not have done this outside a meeting, maybe on Slack or some other means, right? Let's get to that later, but let's presume that some of them needed to get to this meeting. Then the next logical question is: Did all of them need to be in that meeting? If they did not need to be in that meeting, then I don't think they should be in the meeting, because I find myself sometimes in meetings that I don't think I'm adding any value to, right? Then why should I be in those meetings? I might as well be doing something else that's more productive to the team and then to the company, right? But then this is a paradigm, right? It's very cultural. I don't know it's necessarily team driven, but in my mind it's more company or department or division or whatever the right term is. It's driven top down. So it has to be imbibed. It has to be a culture. And I'm sure it's different in different companies. But the next time you're in a meeting, just look around, or if you're on a Zoom call or some other virtual meeting, which is what we are all on these days, or that's what I've been on forever, actually, come to think of it. You just see how many people are attending that meeting, and you want to ask yourself, could we be spending the time more wisely, right? And maybe you enjoy meetings. If you do, then maybe efficiency is one part of it. Maybe you enjoy that part of your day, and maybe it's a break from your routine. I don't know. But there are times I find myself getting into some of these calls, even when we do our own work. I'm like, no, I don't want to be in that meeting, right? Even if it's two people meetings, I'm like, hey, let's try to do as much as we can do offline. And then when we get to a point where we need to make a decision, that actually is going to be easier if we did that on a call, then there is value add in getting in that call, right? That's point number one. I'm already at almost the 5-minute mark, but I'm just going to keep going, right? That's the direct sunk cost, but that's not the only cost. When, as a developer or an architect or whatever it is, the role I play in a contract or for myself, when I get to that meeting, let's say the meeting is at 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just 5 minutes or so before the meeting, you start thinking about the meeting, right? Maybe you have to prepare for the meeting, or maybe you don't have to. If you don't have to, then maybe it's not even 5 minutes, it's just a couple of minutes before. But there is time lost before and after the meeting. So it's not just the 1 hour that you spent on the call, it's generally maybe 5 minutes before and after. So if you took 60 minutes and then add another 10 to it, that's close to like 20%, right? So it's 20% of your meeting time is spent outside of the meeting just preparing or getting ready for the meeting. And I'm talking pretty small numbers on an absolute scale here, right? It's 5, 6, 10 minutes. But in the context of the meeting itself, it's actually about 20%. And everything adds up, right? It's generally death by 1,000 cuts. Whether it's performance, whether it's dollars, whether it's savings or expenditure, it's not just this big number, it's everything that contributes to that big number. And again, the smaller you are, the more cognizant and conscious you ought to be, because you could have written something, 10 lines of code, maybe you fixed a bug, whatever it is that you could have potentially possibly done if not for this meeting, right? So that's also cost, not just the direct dollar amount. Even if that translates to dollar amount, it's also time and efficiency lost. Because as a developer, sometimes you're in that zone of trying to solving something. And then if somebody interrupts you, or you get interrupted because you have to hop onto this meeting, then it's actually time lost in more than one way. It's not just the direct cost to the company or the team. It's actually your mind losing sort of track of what you were doing. You've lost that flow. Now you have to get back after the call at 4 o'clock and then go back and start thinking about what was it that you were doing before you got onto this call. So I think it's very important to make these efficient. I'm just talking about meetings, and I'll try to talk about other things in the subsequent videos. And now that we are all doing virtual calls, there's all other kinds of issues too, right? Is somebody on mute? Are they talking? Are there audio issues, video issues? A ton of different things. We are all remote dialing in from different geographical locations. Some of us have better internet connections than other people. So I think a lot of this should be ironed out, right? It's actually frustrating and inefficient to ask if somebody is on mute. I understand we're all human. We're going to make these mistakes, but we want to try and minimize those mistakes so it just doesn't become excruciatingly painful or frustrating. Because how many times, like again, the next call, just watch out for this, right? How many times do you have to wait for people not joining on time? Or if they were on mute or they were talking, the line was not clear, they have to dial back in. And sometimes it takes like 3 or 4 minutes for someone to just connect to a Zoom call after you share the link. So a combination of all of these things will lead to inefficiency, right? And then when it comes to deliverables, that deadline doesn't change generally, right? As a developer, as an architect, as a manager, you're expected to deliver at certain points of time. Nobody cares, and by nobody I mean even yourself or your company or your peers or seniors. Nobody cares that there were these issues. So it's on us, each one of us, to make sure that we call out for these issues and do our very best in making sure that we are not sitting in meetings that are adding no value to us, and the converse is we are not adding any value to the meeting. And I don't know what the rule of thumb is, but if there's like more than 5 people on a call, I think it's just too many, right? Unless it's an all hands meeting. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I was in a call with more than 5 people, where actually more than 5 people added quantifiable value to that particular call. So it needs to be broken down into smaller breakout groups or whatever. Sometimes you have a lot of these fancy terminologies, but they are also distractions. Efficiency does not need to be explained using jargons and terminologies, right? You have to build something. You have a certain period, window of time to building whatever it is that you want to build, and you want to put your best foot forward in doing that. If you feel that's not happening, I think it doesn't matter whether it's a junior, mid-level, senior person, because I do contracting and I don't even have a designation 9 out of 10 times. People just say, Krish, I need a certain kind of help. Can you do that, right? So I've not been worried about titles, maybe because I've not had a fancy one, so there's no point worrying about it. But regardless, right, even in my first job, I did not fear expressing my opinion, and I don't think any of us should, right? We live one life, as long as it's not hurting anyone's feelings, or it should not hurt anyone's feelings. If it's engineering and technical related, I think you ought to share your opinions. And if you think the meeting is not worthwhile, you want to at least give it one shot and let them understand. Thanks.